Buddy. Oh. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. I'm James Price, along with Cole Whiston. There we go. And Rob Pantilimon. Fellas, it is a blast to be here as always for you boys. And I can't wait because there is so much to talk about. And I feel like we just talked about this last pod. We're going to talk about again. Vladdy stuff continues. We'll talk some spring training stuff as we go along. Boys, let's get this thing going.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Boys, it's good to hear from you, as always. And look, let's not beat around the bush. We're here to talk Vlad as per usual. The last two pods, very similar stuff in that sense. But some new news has come to light around the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. situation. We heard that, the Spanish pod, he asked for under 600. Like, oh, thanks, Vlad. And then we heard that the Jays asked for, offered around 500 and that they're $50 million off over the course of the 15-year span. It is all just pandemonium right now. In Blue Jays land towards Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Cole, where do you want to start, buddy? Because there is just 8 different ways we could go with this.
Okay, first, shout out to the Jose Bautista bat flip because that's going in MLB The Show this year.
Yep.
To the Vladdy stuff, I want to make it clear. The news that happened today is it came out. Vladdy asked for 500 over 14. The Jays offered 450 over 14. 50 million off.
500 guaranteed. This is not sticker price. Guaranteed. We got to make that clear. Okay. Guaranteed money, not just sticker price.
Okay.
Right.
Which works out to be roughly 3.5 million AAV over those 14 years that they couldn't come to an agreement on. Here's the thing: 50 million isn't close. No matter how you put it, no matter how you slice it, the 3.5 million AAV is how we choose to slice it to make it seem like it's all that close. Over 14 years, it's not close. So when the first thing came out and Vladdy was like, "Yeah, we weren't close." He's right. 50 million, not close at all. Not to mention the fact that both numbers are absurd overpays for a first baseman, especially a volatile first baseman in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. So let's make that clear right now. But here's the thing. I don't blame the front office for not coming to an agreement on $500 million for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But Vladdy, shut up. You told us this entire time for 3 years now, you want to be a Blue Jay for life. You love it here, and that is what you want to do. Okay, here's the thing. That can be true, but when we offer you a gross overpay for what you've given us over the last 5 to 6 years, well, then clearly the one is not more important than the other. Clearly, to you, it's more important to get every dollar that you're worth, including pie in the sky money, than it is to be a Toronto Blue Jay for life. Yep. You have every right to ask for every dollar that you deserve. You also have every right, a year out from free agency, to say, you know what, unless you're going to blow me to the water, I am going to go to free agency to see what the open market is going to provide me, especially if I put up another 6-4 year. All that's fine and dandy. I don't want to hear it after your deadline. You literally said you weren't going to negotiate in season. That implies because you do not want it to be a distraction. Guess what? It's been 3 weeks since that deadline of yours, and all you have been is a distraction.
Sure.
All you have been is a goddamn distraction. At every point, you are playing the media, which, again, is in your favor. Good business decision. But here's the thing. Then I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. And guess what? Regardless of how smart your business moves might be, how savvy you think you are, all the money that you're... us fans are allowed to feel this way. If you would like this to end like the Vince Carter saga did in Toronto, then keep doing what you're doing. Because if you ask for $500 million after a 4-war year this year, next year, and someone gives it to you and it's not the Jays, guess what? Sayonara, buddy. Take a fucking hike.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, geez, multiple. You know what? We call you professor for teaching class. Call you like chef, prof. I don't know, for just cooking there. That was wild stuff. My goodness, I don't even know where to go from that. You mentioned right off the top. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning there where you talked about the price and the 50 million is a crap load of money. Obviously, if people do the math, it averages out to be $3.571 million per season over the course of that 14 years, which is banana land. And the amount of times, and you mentioned how you're tired of hearing this nonsense. We've heard it for the last 3 years, but how he's been all beautiful and roses and daisies. He wants to be a Blue Jay for life, screw the Yankees, this and all that stuff. The amount of times that we have seen this guy hit a walk-off or something and say, this is my house, this is my house. And it's like, clearly it's not. If you're putting her up for sale for nothing. So,
yeah.
It's wild to me how things have turned so fast. We all don't like the organization. Okay. Sorry, Let me rephrase that. The management.
Yes.
Exactly.
We get that. And I understand that completely. But I cannot get behind Vladimir Guerrero Jr. completely on this. I physically can't do it. Yes, we love the player. We love the personality. We love that he's somewhat part Canadian, I guess you want to call it. He has a good passport, I guess. But I look at the situation like, you want to be here, show us. Show me you want to be here, okay? That doesn't mean rinsing the organization and making you the talk of spring training when, in fact, I thought you weren't supposed to be because you wanted it done before. Right. And all we have talked about, all the shows have been talking about is you. And it's not because of the organization blurting stuff out. It's because he can't keep his mouth shut. Yep. I love Vlad. I love the player. I love everything about him. But for God's sakes, I don't want, like you mentioned, Cole, Vince Carter, great point. You know, generational player who didn't really win anything. Yeah, I mentioned generation. I did it. And a guy who can just, who basically, he's not asking out, but, you know, he's kind of indirectly doing so. Now, I know Rob's got some different points. I can see him cooking there. It's fine. You'll get your turn, bud. But I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's absurd. And we're going into one of the most transitional, weird seasons this organization has gone through in God knows how long. And this is the talking point going midway through spring training. I get it's the boring time of spring training, but I can't do it. I just can't keep doing it.
And it's not the boring time of spring training. This is literally when the roster starts to swiddle down to what we're going to get on opening day. So
it's one of those ones though. It's one of those ones where you're watching the games and you're like, okay, let's get this puppy over with.
2 weeks over. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
What do you got, Rob? What do you got, buddy?
So I'm not in the GTA right now, but from what I hear, the temperature is higher. The weather is nicer, and you guys need to turn the temperature way down, guys. Because these are some hot takes. These are some big declarations. I don't think that the news we heard today is new news. I think on our last podcast, listeners, go back, check it out. We basically all kind of agreed that this was what happened, that Vlad was going to ask for a pie-in-the-sky figure close to $600 million, like David Ortiz's good buddy. We suggested that that's not direct evidence, but it's relatively reliable enough where we can make an assertion that it's somewhat reliable. And based on Jeff Passan's report, that the Blue Jays offered well over $400 million. All this does is confirm what we've already thought, and what we've already thought is how I would have played the market on both sides. If I was Vlad's agent, I probably would have taken 450 guaranteed personally if I was his agent. But I think I would advise Vlad, look, man, it's your right. It's the year right before free agency. This is when the price is going to be higher, coming off a great season, because you're going up against a theoretical market. And if you're the Blue Jays, I would advise them, you know what, buddy, hold your cards, because giving Vlad $500 million, as great as he is, as much as the fans love him, is ridiculous, objectively. There's no objective measure that says that would be a good value deal for the Blue Jays. And Vlad obviously thinks that like 450 is not a good value deal for him. That's fine. He's entitled to think that. And you want to throw the blame on Vlad, and I get that. You want to be a Blue Jay, but you want to do it at $500 million. Like, yeah, sure, thanks a lot, pal. I understand that point of view, but at the end of the day, the Blue Jays had 6 years to extend him. And the reason why they didn't extend him is because they didn't agree on the market value. Well, now Vlad just doesn't agree on the market value from the organization. So to me, I think this is a nothing burger, guys. I think this is nothing that new that we had. I think ultimately, and in the end, I know I keep saying this, but we're going to get to this point. Ultimately, this saga is going to end with next year, Vlad's market value being whatever it is, whatever all the other owners are willing to offer him. And in the end, because the Blue Jays have the resources, they have the motivation to get a deal done, this saga ends with Vlad signing a lifetime deal with the Blue Jays at 130 cents on the dollar. I think that's where we're headed.
You heard it here first, folks. Clip that, Jimmy. We could be using that in about a year's time. Well, maybe hopefully less than that. I can't do this for another year.
It is going to be a year. I don't know what you're talking about. It's going to be 10. It's going to be 8 months from now, 10 months from now, when the season rolls around, the off season rolls around, and the Jays probably had another playoff exit that was very disappointing. And
they make the
playoffs. If we get there, if they
get there, I guarantee you, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be a part of that problem because his entire postseason career, he has been basically irrelevant. So let's make that clear too. He has a small sample, but small sample because of him. So that's the problem. Here's the thing, Rob. Everything you said is correct, except for the fact that he's yapping about it. Like, that's the thing, is like, all of this is correct. Yes, last podcast, we were already under the assumption that the two parties were not close. 50 million is a lot closer than what we were assuming they were at, but 50 million is still not close. And outside of that, that was the only news, is that now we have official numbers. But we do know that the Jays offered him a buttload of money, because over 400 million, if it was like just over 400 million, then that's like kind of what I think his market value would be, like literally, whereas like you're not really paying for him to skip free agency. That's just kind of meeting what his market suggests he is. Also, the market value thing needs to be tweaked a little bit. So yes, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not worth $450 to $500 million over a total contract, but he is worth $35 million a year, which is what $500 million over 14 years.
I agree for now.
Yeah, which is what $500 million over 14 years is. It's 35.
Yes, but professor, to jump in there, you have to consider that contract is not whether Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is worth $35 million a year for the next 6-7 years. It's whether he's worth $35 million a year from his age 35 to 41 seasons, which is it's just obviously the hindrance. It's not going to be. It's not. There's no way.
Right. But that is also how the majority of these contracts work.
Sure.
Like,
look at to jump in here. Xander Bogaerts, a perfect example of that, right? Like that contract is enormously long and just gross.
Right. And this is Xander Bogaerts, not a one-dimensional player, a guy who adds value from different avenues. And I get that Vlad's young, and that's his selling point. But ultimately, if you look at the history of contracts, first of all, the contract the Blue Jays were willing to offer Vlad would have been the third highest paid contract in the history of baseball. I mean, we're talking it would have rivaled Ohtani's. I think Ohtani's was just over $450 guaranteed money. So like we're talking literally outside of the Juan Soto outlier, like Vlad's contract would be right up there with like the biggest contracts, guaranteed money perspective in the history of Major League Baseball. And I think when you look at
which is why, Rob, as a fan, we have every right to not believe him when he says he wants to be a J for life.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, because
but to me,
because that doesn't imply being a J for life. Turning down the second highest contract in MLB history doesn't imply that you want to be a J for life. It implies
I understand what you're saying.
If that
I understand what you're saying.
J for life, then great.
I understand what you're saying. You're suggesting it's essentially a lie by omission. Like he's saying he wants to be a Blue Jay for life, but only if he's going to be paid the highest dollar possible. But to me, I don't see why that's an issue, man. We see players every year get cut, get DFA'd because the teams no longer view them as high value. We see franchise stars get moved because the team no longer views them as that value. Or why can't a player do the same? It never makes sense to me why we blame the players for wanting to get every value possible when we constantly see the organizations try to extract every value possible from their players on their side of negotiations.
We're blaming him for being a hypocrite about it. That's what we're blaming him for.
Cool.
Why is he a hypocrite about it? He never said he's going to take a hometown discount. He owes the Jays nothing.
Then being a J for life is irrelevant.
Yeah, I want to get your guys' opinion on this.
Okay. He was here for 6 years, and they had an opportunity to extend them. And now you're like, oh no, now you got to give them a break.
You don't have to give them a break. You just have to stop telling me like you're going to give them a break. That's what you have to stop doing.
You never said that. Anyway, Pricey, what's up?
Do you think
that implies?
Now this could just be me reading the room a little differently, but I feel like Vladdy, he cares a lot about fan perception. I think he really does care about that stuff. So what, like we talked about, on-field stuff, saying he loves the city, this is my house, this stuff, he wants to be a J for life, all this stuff. Yeah. Do you think going to a podcast and saying that this is his offer and stuff like that is maybe him playing up on the fact that the Jays fans, regardless of move being made, hate the front office? Like, regardless of that.
Right.
Do you think he's playing up on that a little bit?
It is 100% a leverage play.
Sorry. Like, how many times last year we say, blank check? Here you go, Vlad. That's what he wants. And every Jays fan was like, yep, here it is. And so that's the case. So he's probably playing it up a little bit, being like, hey, the organization not giving me that. And
as he should, because guess what? Ultimately, my analysis is that that's going to matter, because ultimately why I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will sign a long-term extension with the Blue Jays is because the Blue Jays will have no choice. They will feel an enormous fan pressure to get it done, and that will cause them to capitulate and overpay any potential suitor. I think that Vlad understands basically what I'm saying, is that the front office is trapped into a corner, and ultimately he has all the leverage. And in the end, that's why I do feel like this scenario all ends with Vlad getting what he wants.
Right.
Getting a Toronto Blue Jay at the highest possible price.
But playing the media like a businessman is disrespectful to the fans. That's what I'm saying.
It's also how every big negotiation has ever gone ever.
That's not true. Jose Ramirez signed with the Cleveland Guardians, and nobody even talked about it. No,
that's the outlier. Pointing to outliers is not a good way of analyzing.
Sidney Crosby has never once went across the media and played the Pittsburgh Penguins. In fact,
right, Professor. This is a salary cap score we're talking about. This is the most amount of money I'm legally allowed to offer you. Here it is. That's what a salary cap score. This is a different scenario.
Fine.
There's a different set of facts.
Fine, I'll keep
Professor,
it. The biggest
this is beyond sports. This is how leverage works. Professor, this is how leverage works in every aspect of life. Look, Professor.
The biggest contract in this sports history was Juan Soto. And not one time over his 6 years, where he got traded 3 times, did he ever make this an entire storyline for 6 months. Not once did he ever do it.
He got traded 3 different times because every team knew he was going to get the every last dollar available. And in the end, that's what happened. He had no loyalty to any of the organizations he played for. He got the highest. Professor, this is not how. This is beyond sports. Like, you're seeing people in office get elected by this method. Presidents, prime ministers get elected by capitulating and using the media as their narrative tool to ensure they get the most amount of votes. Like, pointing Vlad as a bad guy when this is literally how business negotiation has historically ever been done, and you pointing to a few outliers that would suggest otherwise, like, to me, I think that's a little oblivious of the reality, in my opinion.
Yeah, before we go any further, fellas,
he chose the reality. That's what I'm trying to say. He chose for the reality to be, I'm going to spend 6 years telling everybody in Toronto that I want to be here for life, but when I'm offered an overpay, I'm going to turn it down. I'm going to then go past the deadline that I set for negotiations, and I'm going to continue negotiating. I'm going to continue negotiating for the public.
I think it matters that this offer came in at the highest possible price, that it came in a year before free agency. I think that is extremely relevant. Had they offered him $300 million after year 2, I think he signs and that's it. Personally, I think that's it. But I think that because it happened at literally the highest possible price, where he has all the leverage in the world, which he does right now, and he's using it to his advantage. Like, to me, I last podcast, we had a different narrative. We had the perspective of, we're blaming the management and the organization for not signing him. And I defended them for not doing so in that moment. I blamed them for not doing it earlier, but I defended them in that moment. Now the blame has been shifted on Vlad, and I'm defending him for that reason. I think at this point, there's no reason why he should give up any leverage. He should go out there and try to get every last dollar possible, even if it means using the media, because to me, I think that's common practice. I don't see any issue with it personally. We disagree, but that's fine. I don't see any issue with it.
So before we go any further, if you guys want your voices heard, if you're on the live right now and you want to put your 2 cents worth in, fire a comment. I can see the comments.
Yes,
Jimmy
please.
can see the comments. And we'll be, if it works with the conversation, we see 2-0 Legend is on fuego right now in the comments. We see you down there, bud. But if you got any other questions, comments, all that stuff, rip it down below. And if it works with the combo, we'll fire it in there. And if it's a question, we'll hit it at the end, because this is, juicy is an understatement, fellas. Here we go.
So,
what we got?
So here's my thing, because we can't, and I mean this, because I sat in this camp too. I defended Vlad on this as well.
Sure.
We can't sit here and act like the guy who just turned down $450 million for the next 14 years to be a Blue Jay would have signed for $300 million in 2021. We can't, because we have no idea what he was thinking at that time, and there's been no reports that was even a conversation on the table.
No, and that's the point I'm trying to get at when it comes to the whole fact of, like, using the media to go against the organization as they've done this entire time. Like what was it last year, right? The whole not having to go to arbitration deal, right?
Yeah.
And we're all like losing our marbles over it.
I'm just not going to give him credit anymore. After you turn down
That's fair.
the second highest contract in MLB history, I am no longer giving you slack on the assumption that you would have signed for $300 million 3 years ago.
Okay, so then my counter to that is, if that's your opinion, then the front office has zero blame in all this, because there was never a point in Vlad's career where you could legitimately say he's worth 450 plus million. So then at that point, like you're saying that the front office is innocent completely in all this. That's your take.
So for people, out there who haven't really dove deep into the situation, Shai Davidi put up a really good article on Sportsnet, and this is basically the gist of it. Okay, this is what he says, and I'll quote him. Initially, John Heyman and Joel Sherman of the New York Post reported that the Blue Jays tabled a bid of about $500 million with significant deferrals that reduced the offer's present value down to the $400 to $450 million range. Soon after, Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic reported that Guerrero was seeking $500 million in present value, regardless of structure. So that's more of like exact details as to what we're talking about. We're just firing stuff out there and stuff like that. So that's what Shai reported.
And no, it doesn't mean that I can't blame the front office for not signing him. I'm saying both accounts. I'm saying the front office, as of today, was willing to give him $450 million present value for a contract, which is, as our friend in the comments has corrected me, is the third highest, whatever it is, whatever that Ohtani contract is at present value. Yes, it's probably the third highest.
Couple bucks.
We know that. We know that the front office today was willing to offer the third highest contract in MLB history for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He said no. So what I'm saying is that both things can still be true 3 years ago. I'm saying that the front office could have offered a large amount of money that Vladdy was still not willing to take. I'm saying neither one gets credit for that time because of what just happened. The Jays offered him an overpay. He said no.
Yep.
If
find
the Jays offered him,
find this guy.
Yeah, if the Jays offered him in 2021 $250 million, and he said no because he wanted $300 million. That's what I'm saying is we can't. Neither party gets credit for what happened 3 years ago. But what I'm saying is because of what happened today, I'm not going to assume that Vladdy was going to sign in 2021 if we gave him the market value contract.
It's obvious that both parties just fundamentally disagree throughout the whole process about each other's market value, about Vlad's market value, because obviously, So I completely agree. That's obvious. That's obvious. That's why he wasn't signed. That's why he's going to free agency. But ultimately, I think the big picture question is we can talk about whose fault it is. But ultimately, I think that these numbers are significant now that we have actual confirmation. They were only $50 million apart. They were willing to offer $450 million. Based on what we talked about on our last episode about how, Vlad's obviously a great player and he may well replicate that same season again in 2025. His career suggests that it is in play that he's not quite as good as he was in 2024. And for that reason, his value would obviously decrease if he's marketably worse. That being said, considering all that, considering that they were willing to go high offer and overpay, like we mentioned, based on dollar per WAR, are you less or more confident in their ability to sign him in free agency in light of these reports?
I've always been on the side of he won't sign, and I hate to say it. I look, we all want him to be a Blue Jay for life. We thought
like he won't sign as in like he just doesn't want to be here anymore, or that he just has a great year and gets outbid and someone just offers him a shit.
You know what? I think either way, things are in a rough spot, Rob. Yeah. Like I think the organization and him, as you mentioned, and we've all noticed it, have never really come to an agreement on a long term. We've heard all the 200, like Cole mentioned, the 200, 300 million, regardless of how close it was or whatever. Yep. They missed out on arbitration last year. That was assigned to some of us, like, okay, maybe they really don't understand their value together. They were fine this year, but I look at it this way: this season could go disastrous either way. The Jays could be good, make the playoffs, God forbid, and he could have a great year, but then get outbid in the free agency. You lose him for nothing, and here we go, just down in turmoil for years. Or it could go completely sideways, where things don't go well, and fans kind of get on the wrong side of it and don't want him back, or he gets traded at the deadline, or he brings the value down, but the Jays don't want to go to that number again. Like, it's just, it can get so messy, whichever way you look at it.
But Pricey, my rebuttal to that is that right now they've negotiated based on what each of them feel their value is. But in the free agent market, there is no more negotiation.
Right.
Your value is what your value is. Your value is what your
though.
second highest team is willing to offer you.
Right. So what I'm trying to get at is that there's going to be, as Vladdy said, there's going to be 29 other teams that are going to be going for you. Very similar to what Juan Soto said before leaving the Yankees, right? That was a thing. And I don't know. I can't put blame on one person on the organization, stuff like that, but I just do not have the confidence that this is going to get done regardless of when things happen. I have not seen it, and I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to. I'd love to be surprised, but my gut's telling me no.
I'm piggybacking off of that, and in the same vein too. I have now gotten to the point where if Vladdy's going to make this season all about him, then the front office might just say fuck it. This is not how we do business. And then on top of that, the pressure will have turned. Like right now, he is so borderline close to having the fans turn on him. Like, fine. If you're going to treat us like a bunch of idiots, if you're going to turn down the third largest contract in MLB history to play with us, because apparently over these last 6 years you wanted to be a Blue Jay, but then when the opportunity came about for you to do that, you said no, then you know what? Maybe we don't want you back. Like, maybe that's just... So then the pressure from the front office to get that deal done doesn't exist. I also think that there is... Like, if Vladdy doesn't have... Like, I almost think that Vladdy would have to have a better year than he has ever had in his career for me to be more confident in this deal. Because at that point, then I think the Jays and I think all the noise, the outside noise will be gone, because it'll just be like, holy shit, this guy's actually so freaking good at baseball. Sure. We just have to lock this guy up. Whereas I think if he's like a 6-4 player, a 5-4 player,
there will be the fans will side with him if he's a 6-4 player.
Then I think the
fans will side with him.
Then I think there's another team out there that is going to want to outbid us. Like, and I
disagree. See, this is where I fundamentally disagree. I think that eventually there's a number for first baseman. We have historical data that suggests one-dimensional players. 34 is the year. You look at all dead. These aren't for any regular player. These are for legitimate all-time great Hall of Famers. Miguel Cabrera, Albert Pujols. Age 34 season is when the decline happens. You have 8 years of an elite hitter, assuming that's what you think he is, an elite hitter. And then after that, it's going to be $35 million for the next half decade plus of objectively poor value, of objectively abhorrent value. And I think that a lot of teams are going to be turned off by that. I don't think this is going to be a Juan Soto situation where there is alter egos and absolute out the lines fiscal responsibility or irresponsibility involved, where you have two owners trying to outbid each other for the hell of it, just for the stamp of approval from the New York fan base. I think that this is going to be a much more measured market, and I think ultimately cooler heads will prevail. And no team is going to go above and beyond what the Blue Jays are willing to offer because of how desperate they actually are.
So that's what I'm saying is I don't think the Blue Jays at the end of this year are going to be desperate. And I do mean that. I think that whatever number the algorithm spits out to them that they should be paying Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if he has another good year like this, so then that 450 number increases just a little bit. I think that's it. I think Rogers specifically has a number. They've always had a number that they're not willing to go over. And yes, we all agree that 50 million is not close. But to think that 50 million would have saved you all of this conversation and what's going to happen over the next 6 months from probably the second richest owner in baseball being Rogers, I find it kind of surprising that they weren't willing to do it. So that's why I'm saying that I think come next year, we will not be the most desperate team out there wanting Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, 2-0 legend makes a good point. And this is the part where I'm just I'm confused. That's why I'm saying this year could go pear-shaped multiple different ways. He says 2025 Blue Jays could realistically be a $300 million last place team. And if you're the Blue Jays and that's the case, then where's the incentive to lock a guy for 14 years at nearly $600 million or whatever the hell it ends up being? Mm-hmm. It's a very scary proposition. And if you're Rogers, would you do that? Like that's a
The-
scary
the
thing.
incentive.
That's the other thing. That's
So
What
the-
is
two things.
nothing suggests
Two
nothing
things.
suggests that Rogers would.
Exactly.
Yes, they. What do you mean? Like, they literally
No.
offered him the contract. They offered him the third highest contract ever.
No, understandably.
They
But
did
the
not.
fact-
They
the
did.
point-
They,
the point-
they did, but they didn't do that after we finished last.
Sorry, Professor,
Like,
you're cutting out. So could you repeat that, please?
Sorry, this isn't assuming that they would do that if we finished last again
Right.
next year.
And that's the point. You can't have back-to-back fifth place
mean,
American League East finishes. Watching the AL East get
The
better.
thing is,
and
the thing
watching
is, they finished
back-to-back
last
years with-
last year. They finished last year. They increased the payroll. They went into the second CBT tax after finishing last. So like,
Yeah,
I
because
think
they
that
had-
this.
I know, but they had to, because
But they didn't have to. They could have just not signed Max Scherzer. They could have just stopped at Anthony Santander and not paid for Miles Straw, and that would have been it.
well, no, but not if you're gonna have Vladimir. Not if you're gonna have one, say you're gonna compete, and then two, say you're gonna run the same payroll, and then three, say that you're gonna have Vlad and Bo in a contract year.
My point is, by saying all this, clearly ownership is motivated to build a winning product. That's why they spent more money after a horrible year last year. And I don't see, based on that linear thinking, it would go so contrary to what they've operated. Like, why are you
It's
paying
not
the
the point,
luxury
right.
tax this season into the second threshold? And then you know what? Our hands up. We're not gonna after another bad year. That's it. We're gonna go full scale and just cut the roster, cut costs. Like I think it'd be inconsistent to their way of
Sure.
operating to
Your
this point.
stars are gone.
The way I look at it,
course.
there you go, Cole. That's
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was going to touch on. It's like, yes, paying an Anthony Santander, grabbing Miles Straw's contract, paying 1 year of Max Scherzer, fine. You've got 1 year of Bo and Vlad. You're not paying. I mean, God, all accounts say that Bo is going to be cooked and gone by
Yeah.
the end of this year.
Sure.
There goes
That's
one
a
of them.
conversation that we're gonna have at some point.
Well, we
which don't have
definitely
time
will.
for at the moment.
Vladdy's definitely helping us avoid that conversation,
Yeah.
especially the way Bo's spring training's gone so far. It is spring, but looking all right.
Last year he was scorching hot and he had the
Sure.
worst year of his career. So
Hey,
maybe this is
That's what I
good.
say. Spring training is spring training. Nothing good happens, as Blair and Barker say. Nothing good happens in spring training, so it is what it is. But
Yep.
I just look at it like going into next year, you don't have these guys locked up right now. Where's the incentive to spend the money? And after next year, who the hell do you have under contract?
Yep.
So like that's where I'm trying to understand this whole process.
Pricey, think about it like this. Think about it like that. Let's say that you've made a large investment for the last half decade and you haven't gotten the results you wanted. In that moment, would you just sit back and, you know what, the last 5 years, fuck it. Like all this money that I spent, I'm willing to take a loss just to get it done with, or would you
Sure.
try your best to maximize it the best you
I get
can?
that.
But
But what's the other saying though?
Your opinion is that because of those last 5 years, they have to go to pie in the sky the money to retain Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
No,
Yeah, but
no, I don't think they have to go to pie in the sky. I think they're going to go to the market value. He's going to get what the market value says he gets next year. There is no more negotiating what market value is. It'll
Right.
be determined for them, and I think that's what they're going to pay. I think
The
that's
reason
what
I'm
it is.
trying, the reason I
Despite-
don't think he's going to be a Blue Jay next
David
year is because
Overbeck.
you can't keep beating your head against the wall with an with an organization and a team and a core for that matter. Because to the core, fellas, that doesn't work. Clearly, has not worked. They've been at this core for so long, and you're not going to start dishing out,
Okay,
$500 million.
So this is a completely different conversation. You're saying that at that point, this core is not working, so let's build it up again. That's a different story than, you know
Clearly
what,
they're-
like, we're just like,
Look, if they
that's
didn't
it for
want,
Vlad. Like, we're going to take a step back payroll-wise. You're saying that they might just go a different method, a different way
they,
of
they might
trying
have
to win.
to, Rod.
Yeah.
They might have to
Sure,
because
but
Mark
that's a
and
different
Ross are not
conversation.
around.
That's a different. If they don't want to sign Vlad, but they want to sign Kyle Tucker and ex-player, whoever else is out there, and build a contender that way, like, that's fine. It's a different conversation. But what we're talking about right now is specifically the payroll, and if they're going to reduce the payroll and not pay Vlad what he wants because it's going to go above their budget, and to me, like, that's what we're arguing. I'm saying they won't do that. I'm saying that because of how they've operated, I don't see them cutting payroll significantly. I just don't see them doing that. I think they're motivated to build a winner.
So here's my definitive take. They are not handing out a $400 million contract next year.
They did. They already did.
No, they're not doing it. Next year, they're not doing
They
it.
already
Next year
did.
you're going into free agent. But regardless, if it's 400
doing
million, you think
And
Vlad
no,
is
and
taking that?
no, offering the contract and handing it out, two different things.
Absolutely. They'll dish it
What?
out.
How?
they'll give
Because-
Vlad the paper that says 400 million on it. Does he sign the damn thing? Is the other question.
Yeah, because
And
yeah,
No,
evidently-
no. But okay, so that's not offer. That's acceptance. Offer is different from acceptance. You can offer someone money; they don't have to accept it. But like offer and handing it out is, to me, how is it any different? It's analogous. It's semantics. It's different. It's synonyms.
my point is because I was including all of it in the same category. Vlad will not be signing for 400 million, and the Jays aren't
Okay,
going to sign him for over 400 million.
So
the Jays
you're
are
saying
not
that the
going
Jays
to
won't, the Jays offer won't be accepted, but not that they won't offer 400 million.
Yes, absolutely.
That's two different things.
Right.
That's two completely
I
different
didn't say
things.
offer though.
That's my part,
I said they will not hand
You
out.
did,
A
you
400
said- you did,
I said
you
they
said-
will
you
not
said- you said-
hand
you
out
said-
a $400 million contract next year.
You said offer and hand out are different things, and they're not.
I disagree.
Anyways,
You said
boys,
that. We have it on
let's get
record.
back
Jimmy,
on
we
the
have it on
rails,
record.
boys.
No, I said hand out. I'm
Nah,
saying
we're
I
cooked.
disagree that they're not
Hey,
different.
we're
They're different. Yeah.
Wait, sorry, what?
I said hand out. What I'm saying is I disagree that is the same as offer.
How? Okay, explain that to me. Because to me, it just feels like semantics. How is handing
This
out an
English
offer
class,
different from
fellas, I ain't
offering?
learning grammar today. Is it, or not grammar? What the hell? See, I can't even English today.
But this okay. Explain that real quick.
Because offering a contract that you know that somebody's not going to sign is not handing out a contract that you think that someone's going to sign.
But I think that they legitimately thought Vlad would take a $450 million. You mentioned it's an overpay. You mentioned that as a very much a fair offer.
It is a fair offer. I don't think they thought they were going to take it.
So then, yeah, then okay. Anyways, I think that I think your last point's confusing, but regardless, let's move on.
We
No,
have
it's not
talked.
confusing. There's
we
not
have-
going to be a $400 million contract next year from the Toronto Blue Jays.
Offered. They won't offer a $400
There
million
will not be
contract.
a contract on the books for $400 million.
It won't be accepted. Okay, got you. It won't be accepted.
Anyway,
It won't be offered. It won't be accepted.
fellas, the Vladdy discourse has come to a close after almost 40 minutes, but you know it's good quality content. Hit that like button, subscribe button, whatever the hell you want to do to the page. It means
Don't
a
worry,
lot
folks.
to us.
We got 8 to 9 more months of this.
I'm gonna
thank
go
you.
great.
Thank
I'm gonna go great by the end of this, boys. I swear to God. I didn't know it was possible, but I swear it's gonna happen after this season.
Oh, and the thing is,
Thanks,
here's the
Vlad.
thing: because of our opinions are heavily publicized, like in our group chat and all, you
Yeah.
just know, no matter what resolution, this will be something that we'll talk about forever. It'll be forever bragging rights. Whoever is right at the end of this. So
If
I'm
you have
very
Instagram
much
group
looking forward
chats
to
at
it.
home, ladies and gentlemen, the 4+ messages will be flying all year long. So that's just going to leave that out to you. All right, let's get to the actual baseball. Maybe a little bit of positivity, just a hint of it, fellas. We didn't have much last year. We've had a little bit throughout the offseason. We're already miserable 40 minutes into this. So let's talk about some spring training baseball, shall we? And who the hell is doing what? Because
Oh, I'm actually not miserable. Vladdy's pissed me off, but I'm not miserable. I'm actually quite optimistic about this team
Okay.
next year. I don't know how I got here, but I am. I actually am optimistic. The thing I'm most concerned about is the pitching staff being the oldest in baseball.
Sure.
That worries the hell out of me. But in terms of an offensive standpoint, I'm at the point where this might be the 2021 team. To be honest with you,
don't
I'm
think
not.
it's a
This
good
okay. Hold on. Not two MVP. Not two
Come on
MVP.
now.
Not two MVP candidates. I'm sorry. That was I should have said.
And the Cy Young?
And
oh, come on.
I was only talking
God,
offensive.
tight pants,
I said.
Robbie Ray.
I said from an
Fair enough, fair
offensive
enough.
standpoint.
Fair enough.
I do think Vlad is going to be a 6'4" player this year. I do think Anthony Santander is going to replace the production we got from Teoscar Hernandez that we all loved. I do think Andres Jimenez is going to be a league average hitter. I do think Dalton Varsho is going to be close to a league average hitter. And then I think, as we've discussed on multiple occasions, one of Alan Roden, Will Wagner, Orelvis Martinez. I'm missing somebody.
Barger.
Barger. No, but I think there's somebody else too that I'm missing. Anyway,
Joey Lopafito.
Alan Roden?
No, I'm throwing some names
no,
out.
I said Roden. All of these guys, all of these. One of these guys is going to work out to be a Spencer Horwitz esque player this year, like he was last year. So I think from an offensive standpoint, and Bo, obviously, I fully anticipate Bo being more Bo-like than he was last year. So my point is that I'm very optimistic about the offense. I have full confidence in it, to be honest with you. So I think at the minimum, even if we're not a good team this year, offensively, we'll be entertaining to watch.
Isn't it incredible, boys? Isn't it incredible? We go from a year last year where watching the offense was like watching freaking paint dry, and you're like, God, this is
horrible.
Just my eyes were bleeding every time I'm watching this team play. And then, yeah, cool. I'm with you. Like, I'm optimistic, and I'm scared because I'm optimistic. But yeah, Bo Bichette, no more Bo flows. Bo just going different. I don't know. Vladdy got rid of what did he have? The long hair last year.
Dreads, yeah.
And then Bo gets rid of the long hair this year. I don't know, fellas. It could get interesting. But I'm with you. I think a guy like Relvis Martinez. I think we talked about it last pod. How he's got to make an impact. I think that's the way. Like, regardless of how he makes the impact, whether it's a DH, whether he plays some second base, or whatever the hell they decide to do with him, he's got to make an impact if this team wants to go anywhere. Some impact, right? I'm not saying come up in September and hit a $120 and hit a couple homers. No. Like, he's got to make a little bit of an impact because they need, as you mentioned all those names, Cole. They need one guy, at least one guy, to come out of the woodworks and, like you said, give us some sort of Spencer Horwitz where you're like, whoa, this guy's actually having a really good year and have a really good season, because this team kind of need it if they want to be not fifth in the AL East.
They do need it. They need it. And that's definitive. And I think we should extend the impact, even if it means getting traded to make the impact, because that's something that is still very much up in the air. There's a chance that one of these guys gets dealt for a bat that you can rely on this year that's Major League ready already.
Sure.
I don't anticipate that happening, but someone like Dan Schulman, I believe it was Dan Schulman, went on Blair and Barker and talked about that, and he said that that's still a very real possibility. Is that it comes? Oh no, it was Siddle. That it comes from outside of the dugout.
Yeah, we'll see.
Let me ask you guys something. I know that this is always an exercise in futility because, literally after a week, the opening day roster always gets shifted. Guys get called up and all that stuff. But I want to know if you guys agree with me. But right now, I'm looking at the roster, and assuming Varsho is not going to be healthy for opening day, let's just say he's not for whatever reason. Well, he's injured, so that's the reason. There are 8 locks on the roster right now. I see 8 locks, and I'm getting towards 10. I'm getting towards 10 locks, but I'll read you guys. This is position player, so there's 13 position players and 8 locks. So I'm Vlad, Bo, George Springer, Andres Jimenez, Anthony Santander, Kirky, Ernie Clement are the 8 locks I have, and then I have 2 guys who I'm getting close to calling them locks, and that's Will Wagner and Tyler Heineman, which means that there's 3 roster spots. And
so you mentioned Stash Boy David Schneider, correct?
I'm not considering him a lock, although he might be. So I'll consider him likely, but not a lock. So basically, here's the pool. There's 3 roster spots open, and you got Joey Loperfido, David Schneider, Addison Barger, Nathan Lucas, Clase, Jonathan Clase, Leo Jimenez, Alan Roden, who we'll talk about, I'm sure, shortly, Relvis Martinez, Miles Straw, and Stuart Baroa. So I'm thinking right now, someone's going to get squeezed. Those are 10 names I just gave you guys and 3 roster spots, assuming Varsho isn't healthy. Obviously, Varsho's a lock if he is healthy. Yeah. But ultimately, how do you guys see this playing out? Do you guys see the Jays going more high floor with like a Nathan Lucas and a David Schneider being those last 2 roster spots? Or you go a little bit of upside? You go with maybe Alan Roden makes a team. Maybe Addison Barger makes a team. Maybe, I think he's behind the 8 ball, but in Relvis Martinez, how do you think they play it out?
I think the first guy that you're probably going to see is Joey Loperfido. I think they want to know what he is.
Fair enough.
Right? Yeah. Obviously, one of the pieces last year in the Kikuchi deal. I think they want him to be a part of this. What role he's going to play, I'm not sure. I think a lot of left field when guys like Santander aren't out there.
Well, center field, if Varsho's hurt, I'd imagine he'd probably get a little offense out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's for me. I think he's probably a lock, regardless of the spring numbers. I think it's just because they want to get an idea. They want to get a definitive. Okay, is he a part of the future moving forward? No. Back down to AAA you go, and then next guy up.
Yeah, I think that the same vein can be said about David Schneider too.
Sure, absolutely.
I do think both of those guys are, in my opinion, if not locks, like as close to a lock as you can get for me. And then the third roster spot,
probably Baroa or something, gets them like speed, 4th
out. Well, so David Schneider and Loperfido, they're both kind of outfield high. Like, I mean, obviously Loperfido is a full-time outfielder, but Schneider's like a hybrid. So at that point, do you kind of go with an infielder? Do you go with a Leo Jimenez type of guy?
Yeah, we saw a lot of Leo last year, so I would say probably that's a good bet.
Yeah. I disagree. But the problem is
you disagree with their decision, but you don't disagree that he's going to have the last spot.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I disagree with how they're going to go about doing this. I'm just basing it off of what's happened over the last few years. It seems like they continue to go with the high floor guys.
Yeah.
And I guess you can make an argument for both cases, given the first month and a half. Because the first month and a half is a gauntlet of division games, and if not division games, playoff teams, then you could argue that, yeah, you have to go high floor, because you have to win these games if you don't want to dig yourself out of a hole in May. So you could argue that, but you could also see it from the other perspective of, well, sure, you could argue these guys have a higher floor, but you could also very much argue that they have a significantly lower ceiling, in which case winning these games might come down to having someone who outperforms expectations, and that would have to side with the guys with the higher ceiling. So, yeah, I disagree, mainly because I just think maximize the potential right out of the gate. Go with the guys that you think are going to do something in your lineup, and I think that be a part of your lineup in September is what I mean. And if you think that they're ready right now, and I think Alan Roden, I know news came out today that it seems like he is on the outside looking in still for an opening day roster spot. I don't know how that's possible. I know it's spring training, but like all he's done is rake. Like all he's done is hit balls hard and often. I don't know what more he would need to do to make the opening day roster than what he's already been doing. So I hope that it prevails and the hard work is shown and he's rewarded for that, because I would much prefer him in the lineup over David Schneider, if I'm being honest with you, on March 27th, March 28th, March 29th. So that's kind of where I sit.
I'm 100%. Yeah, I'm 100% with you on the Roden side of things. I brought up his stuff. I mean, his numbers have been off the charts basically since coming up to Buffalo last year. We had the chance to see him down there. I mean, he played 71 games for the Bisons at 314 with a 406 OBP and 916 OPS. I mean, he dominated down there.
James, while you have it there, how many plate appearances does he have in the minors?
For his career, he's got a total of his whole minor league career, almost 1,200 plate appearances.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What more do I need to see from Alan Roden in Buffalo than him smacking this ball around at 100 miles an hour in spring training in 2025, when you literally are 1+ bat away from this lineup being legit in the AL East?
Sure. And
how far into the season until we have legitimate nightly discourse on should the Jays find a way to offload George Springer's contract to open up playing time for Alan Roden? Because I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. By the way it's trending.
Yeah, I think that's. But I think trying to offload George Springer's contract is a conversation that has never stopped.
Exercising futility.
If they could do it, they would have done it already.
Right, exactly. Right. I think it's possible. Yeah.
Quick Roden numbers. I mean, Cole mentioned the great spring he's had so far. Put into perspective for people, he's played 12 games. He's had 25 plate appearances. Again, nothing crazy. 2 doubles, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, walked 5 times, and struck out once. Yeah. He's just been raking the ball and also made a couple really
all over the place.
Oh yeah, and obviously made a couple really nice defensive plays. I think it was like in a Boston spring training game, dive and play in the outfield. So 25 years old as well, kind of like that Spencer Horwitz Mulberry. Like, what are you? And so it's a perfect time to do it. But I think he might be like a May call up. I don't.
I know. But the Spencer thing, the reason why Spencer got his roster spot and the reason why he held it is because he had a big league eye and it was obvious. Sure. He had like a stupid OBP in Buffalo, and then when he got here, it was the same thing. If he wasn't going to draw a walk, he was going to put the ball in play. And that's what Alan Roden is doing. He's putting the ball in play. His bat-to-ball skills are incredible, on top of the fact that he hits the ball hard. This is what Davis Schneider did for 2 weeks, and it earned him what felt like a lifetime membership to the 26-man roster, even though he was awful.
He definitely earned like basically a full year of rope, essentially.
Yeah, a full year of rope. He was awful last year. So it's like, for me, when you have another guy like that, and you're watching him every day, then it's like, okay, well, how do we not reward this guy the opportunity? Like Martinez, at least, there's a reason. It's like, okay, well, the only place we can put him is DH, and on top of that, we literally just had to deal with the fact he got suspended for 80 games for using performance-enhancing drugs. And then on top of that, he doesn't have 1,200 plate appearances in the minors.
Yep.
Man, boys, just once, I want to see this organization just go with, just screw it. Go with the high upside guys. Stop this, like, all this, like, low, like, high floors. And, like, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen because of this this organizational philosophy has always been one of high floor guys, low ceiling guys. But that's how they've drafted. You look at their position pool of players right now that they have. Like I'm like the Spencer Horwitz trade. He was that. He was a high floor, low upside guy, and I think they did a good job by getting good value out of him. But ultimately,
Massive.
these are the players they develop and bring to the big leagues. Like there's very few guys with upside star potential, and the few you have, I think you gotta if this season is going to go the way you want, and you're gonna have an offensive lineup that's gonna have difference makers from young, controllable roster spots making high value deals in terms of them not making that much and getting good production out of them. You got to roll with the high floor guys, the Addison Bargers, Earls Martinez. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's the thing
absolutely.
too. Here's the thing too, and this is gonna segue perfectly into a YouTube comment, and that's probably how we're gonna finish things off here. But
yeah,
if all of a sudden Aurelvis Martinez is a 25 home run guy over 400 plate appearances in the big leagues this year, well, then all of a sudden handing out that Vlad contract looks a lot nicer, or handing out that Bo contract looks a lot nicer, because you're like, holy shit, maybe we actually have something here, because Aurelvis Martinez could also be a 30 home run guy. We're talking about high floor guys, and we're talking about high upside guys. Someone asked in the comments, Dalton Varsho, what's the expectations this year? I want to make this clear to people who had seen my Andres Jimenez video and who continue to see the discourse online about Andres Jimenez. Dalton Varsho and Andres Jimenez are not the same thing. They're the same prototype in the sense that they are defense first guys, but they are not in the same circumstance. Dalton Varsho is 28 years old, I believe. This is going into his age 28 season. Andres Jimenez, I think so. I think he's going into his age 28 season. I think he's 27, but he's going.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So
I think you're right.
28 years old, and he turns 29.
So he's going into his age 29 season. Oh my God, this proved my point even more. So because he's going into his age 29 season, guys, it is in all likelihood we've seen the best of Dalton Varsho. What we have for a sample size in his career is probably what we're going to get in between his highs and his lows, which means a really high floor guy, not a high upside guy. He's at most going to be a 6'4" player, and that is if he can get to an above league average hitter. Andres Jimenez,
at most.
Andres Jimenez
is terrible.
Is going into his age 26 season.
Yep.
We haven't seen the best of Andres Jimenez, or at least we don't know if we have yet, because he hasn't entered his prime. That's the same case as Vladdy. The reason why we think Vladdy has all this potential is because he's also going into his age 26 season. There's a world that exists that Vladdy's best year is this year, and Andres Jimenez's best year is this year. I'm obviously not saying that the two are comparable. What I am saying is that you can't count out a guy at 26 years old. However, you can count out a guy probably at 29 years old. Yeah. So they aren't the same thing. Dalton Varsho is going to be what Dalton Varsho is, but Andres Jimenez, the guy that people like to compare him to, might not be. There is a world where Jimenez is much better than what he has been.
I'll keep it simple, Rob. So you can go.
I'm not as bullish.
I'll keep it simple.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
Yep. Dalton Varsho is going to be Dalton Varsho. He's going to be an elite defender. If he's healthy for most of the games, he'll hit 20 bombs. Hit 215, 220, hover around that 700 OPS. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm really hoping I'm wrong, but I think that's just where he's going to sit. And that's that. And like you mentioned, Cole, the Andres Jimenez, I mean, he's got some more upside. You've seen it through his career. He has done it.
Yeah.
You know, he has been an all-star, for God's sakes. You know, so you got to give him that. Rob, what do you got, bud?
Yeah, I Dalton Varsho is what he is. Like at this point, like we have enough of a sample, and the sample is a really good player. It's like what we've talked about. It's a 4 to 5 win player if he's healthy. It's on offense 20 bombs with a 700 OPS, which works around a 97, 98 OPS plus, which is what his career numbers are, which is really good. I mean, it's not a really good hitter, but it's if you're going to provide A+ defense like he does, which he's going to do if he's healthy. He has done it every year of his career. And he combined that with a right around league average hitter. Yeah, that's a hell of a ball player. 4 to 5 wins. I'm not as bullish on Jimenez as you guys seem to be, offensively at least. I think that his baseball savant numbers last year were pretty. I mean, not concerning because again, like if he's just an A+ defender like he has been and has speed and steals a lot of bases and like can hit the occasional, get on base and hit for a decent average, and I think that that's a really good player on its own right. That's no issue there. I don't see him being a league average hitter. Hope I'm wrong. If he is, then I think he's a really good player for the Blue Jays. I think they're both everyday players who provide a ton of value. And if anything that you can get from them offensively that's close to league average or above, that's a huge plus. That's that's augmenting an already very, very good baseball player.
So what you're telling me is we're going to win another team gold glove. Love it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, probably.
Of course.
But with a lot more bombs this year.
I can't wait.
Hopefully.
My final point is quick. Ernie Clement is probably going to have a regression year. I was a big fan of him last year, but that's because he just joined the league. He's probably been figured out. He's probably going to have some regression, just to answer that question in the comments.
Yeah.
My final thing on Andres Gimenez.
If this season goes the way it's supposed to go, the way we were hoping it goes, Ernie Clement's not your third baseman in August.
Right.
Yes. Absolutely.
My final thing on Andres Gimenez, and this might be something that's also clip worthy, so just prepare yourself. If he's a league average hitter, we don't need Bo Bichette.
Okay, I'm not even gonna reply to that. That's great. Wow, wild stuff.
You think we have enough offense? We're good. That's it. No need.
I mean,
no, but we can take the money that we're saving with the team control
okay.
of Andres Gimenez and spend that elsewhere because we won't need Bo Bichette anymore because we have a shortstop that's a 6'4" player every year. Yeah,
I understand that thinking because like we briefly touched on it a little earlier that we can debate Vlad all we want, but we're not confident as of this moment that we're going to pay Bo Bichette beyond this season. So if that's the case, and you can replace him with a shortstop that's controllable and young and productive, and you can get assets for Bo Bichette, then yeah, I think that there is validity to what you're. I think I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a good take.
The last thing I want to punch in here, boys, we haven't talked about it yet. Mad Max, he got pushed back because of thumb soreness.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not worried. I'm not worried. That was another question.
Yeah.
Schneider actually said he straight up said it was precautionary. So
well, I didn't even bring it up for that specific reason. I brought it up because he has 9 innings and 14 punchies in the spring so far. What are we feeling? Like,
I'm not worried.
Kind of nice.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Oh,
I'm not going there.
Sorry, talking about Scherzer and how he's done.
Not getting excited.
No, because
not there yet, buddy.
Yeah. No, that.
Don't get me wrong. Like I'm bullish for sure, but
boys is so
no, 100%. I mean, and obviously you'd rather him look good than not look good or be injured. 100%. This is the optimal. This is the best case scenario as of this moment. However, I mean, Professor, this might have been a little bit, just slightly before your time. And Price, I know you're right there. You were right there. Francisco Liriano, 2017, the year he got traded to Houston. Remember coming into spring training, how awesome he looked, and everyone's like, he's gonna break out and have this great year, and he had an ERA of 6, and they ended up trading him for Teoscar, by the way, which ended up working out. But yeah, I think of that anytime I hear great spring training from a pitcher. He's always the cautionary tale, the poster of just hold your horses a bit. You know what I mean?
My one take on Liriano is that every time I'm watching him pitch, I'm screaming at the TV, or the one playoff game where he got the line drive off the noggin off Carlos Gomez. That's about all I remember from Liriano.
My only take on Liriano, and Rob's right, that was right before my time, but he ate Max Scherzer.
Fair enough. He's not
wrong there. All right, boys. Well, it was a blast. Rob, Cole, as always, boys, it was a blast. And hey, next time I think we're gonna talk. It's probably gonna be some sort of season preview.
Yep, that will be.
Yeah, I think we might have
maybe one.
Maybe one exactly because I'm thinking we wait for a massive season preview the week of opening week, which is 2 weeks from now. We'll definitely have a podcast next week. I definitely want to do one every week until the season starts, and then we're gonna move to 2 a week.
I mean, hey.
I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be something. Well, I promise you, all our loyal listeners who've stuck around for 58 minutes, we're gonna have something for you next week.
If Vlad keeps giving us content, you're damn right you're getting one next week. All right, boys. It was a blast.
We got 2 things next week. 2 things next week. There will also be an interview with Keegan Matheson going on the YouTube channel in full at some point over the weekend or next week. I'm going to be doing that. Hopefully Rob's going to join me as well. I'm grabbing a lot of my questions are coming from our Instagram post about previewing the interview today. So if you have any questions and you're listening to this listen to this podcast, then head over to our Instagram, leave a comment. I'm going to try to get to them all tomorrow. But yeah, that'll be in full with Keegan Madison, the Toronto Blue Jays reporter for MLB.com, going on this YouTube channel at some point over the next week.
I'm open to join. The schedule is going to be a little bit murky, but I definitely do want to talk to Keegan. Obviously, our conversation today, I think that's going to be a headline on what we would potentially talk to him about. So I'll do my best to make it, but unfortunately, based on my schedule and driving back to the GTA tomorrow, I'm not sure how feasible that'll be, but I will do my best.
Well, mic drop, boys. Boom. Make sure you tune into that. For myself, James Price, Cole Whiston, Robin Tillemont, and of course, Jamie behind the scenes as always. Thank you guys so much for listening and or watching, whatever the heck you're doing. And we'll talk to you soon. Go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.